Okay, we're going to go through the solutions for the mock exam for histograms and central tendency. Central tendency is just talking about mean, median, and mode. So on the first problem, it says that 80 matches were played in a football tournament. The following table shows a number of goals scored in all matches. Whenever IB gives you a table with data and frequencies, usually they're going to give you the data in the top row, and then they'll give you the frequencies in the bottom row. Now they might give it to you in a vertical table. If they give it to you in a vertical table, then usually the data is in the left side and frequency is on the right side. So like on this one, you notice that nothing is called frequency. That may confuse you. In this case, the frequency is on the bottom, how they will usually present it. Just remember that the data is always going to look very regular. It's going to be data ranges that are the same width, or it's going to be numbers that are consecutive and increasing, okay? So that's why you can tell that this is the data. All right, find the mean number of goals scored per match. Okay, now remember, you're just going to use the stat edit function. So you go stat edit, and then you're going to fill your first two columns with this data. So you're going to put in, for example, 0 on the left side, and then 1. You're going to go down, put 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. On the second column, you're going to put 16, 22, 19, for example. Okay, 16, 22. So you can see I've put in the data, the numbers 0 through 5, and then the frequencies in here, just like they have it here. One thing about finding the mean in the calculator means it's very hard to show your work, but you can put in the formula for mean, which in this case what you do is you just take the data and you multiply it times each of the frequencies and you divide by the total frequency. In this case, they even tell you that the total frequency is 80. If you add up all these numbers on the bottom, you get 80. You don't even have to add it up. So what you do is you add up all these goals together and you weight them with each one of their individual frequencies. I'll show you what that looks like. You put 0 times 16 plus 1 times 22 plus 2 times 19 plus 3 times 17 plus 4 times 1 plus 5 times 5. And then you divide all that by the total number of frequencies or matches. And that will give you stat calc 1 var stats list, and we're going to put in list 1 for the list, which is the data, and then we'll put L2 for the frequency, which is the frequencies, and then we hit calculate, and it gives us the X bar is the mean, so the mean is 1.75. So that is the answer to, or the result for this equation here. And I think, oh, maybe they're going to ask us for the median later, so we'll go look at that. There's the median right there. So the 1.75 we can fill in as the answer to A. Oh, I don't have an answer box here, but that's the answer for mean. The median number of goals we can see in the calculator here. It's 2. Okay, and if you wanted to see what that looks like here, since we know that the total number of matches is 80, if we would start from here and count in 40 from the right, or if we count 40 from the left, that will give us the median. So you can see here, like here we have 16, we add 22, that's 38. So the 39th, 40th matches are going to be here in the 2. Okay, so the median is obviously going to be here. And if you count 40 in from this side, it's the same thing. 5 plus 1 is 6, then 23, 19 more, that's, okay, so it's like the median, counting 40 in from the right, you would be in here too. Which makes sense, right, because it's halfway in. So the median is 2. Also, the calculator tells us that it's 2. Find the mode of distribution of goals scored per match. So the mode of the distribution would be the number of goals that is occurs the most. Obviously, that's going to be 22. Okay, the calculator does not do the mode, but looking at a frequency table, it's very obvious, right? So the number of goals that is the mode is 1. A local newspaper claims that the mean number of goals scored per match is 2. Calculate the percentage error in the local newspaper's claim. So what we need to do is put the measured value minus the real value, the actual value, minus the measured value, divided by the actual value. And then, so that will give us, and then we need to take the absolute value of that, of course. So that would be 1.75 minus 2 is negative 0.25, but taking the absolute value is just positive 0.25. We divide it by 1.75, and that gives, oops, the divide sign didn't take. 0.25 divided by 1.75. You might be in doubt. Do I divide by 2 or divide by 1.75? Well, the correct value, the real value, is 1.75, so you divide by the real value. And then we get 0.1429, but in percent, that would be 14.3, right? Because you multiply by 100. Okay, on the grid below, draw a histogram to represent this data, labeling and numbering the axes. Now we need to remember that we always need to say the meaning of each of these axes. And the bottom one is going to be number of goals. And the vertical axis is going to be number of matches, or you could also say frequency. Okay, and then we're going to just put numbers on these ranges. And remember, when you make a histogram, an IB, you need to not put the numbers, but you want to put the boundaries for the numbers. And so the boundaries in this case are going to be halfway in between each of the numbers. So for example, the number between 0 and 1 is 0.5. The number between 1 and 2 is 1.5. The number between 2 and 3 is 2.5. And what do I put here? Well, I want to make all the data width the same. So the distance between here is 0.5 to 1.5. It's 1. So this would be negative 0.5, for example. Okay? So when we label these, we're going to put negative 0.5, 0.5, 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, 4.5, and 5.5. And then on the frequencies, we're going to start numbering with 0, but we're going to go up to, the maximum value is 22, right? So we'll count by 2. 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, right? And then we'll start coloring in our bars. For example, for the first number of gold, which is 0, we're going to count up to 16. So that would be up here. And then for 1 goal, it was 22. And the next one was 19. And the next one was 17, and then 1, and then 5. So 17, 1, and 5. So your finished histogram is going to look like that. Okay? All right. And so it's important to have the labels, and it's important to have the numbers exactly on the lines or the divisions between the data. So even though the number of goals is 1 or 0, 1, 2, we're actually labeling the edges. Okay? Let's go to number 2. David looked at a passage from a book. He recorded the number of words in each sentence as shown in the following frequency table. Find the class interval in which the median lies. Find the modal class. Estimate, correct to the nearest whole number, the mean number of words in the sentence. Okay. Now there's two tricky things about this. One is, remember that when you put ranges like this into your calculator, you were going to put one value, not several values. And the way you find that value is going to be the center of the class. How do you find the center of the class? Well, the first thing you need to do is you need to find the boundaries of the class. And you see how the right boundary for this class is not the same as the left boundary for this class? So what you need to do is you need to make them the same. Halfway in between these two boundaries, you've got 5.5. So we put 5.5 as the right boundary for here. We put 5.5 to the left boundary here. Then here, the same thing between 10 and 11. You need to find a number between 10 and 11, exactly in between. 10.5. This would be 15.5. This would be 20.5. And then the only real tricky ones are like the first one. Now what do we put here? Do we put 0.5? Well, the widths of these ranges are all 5.0. So yes, we put 0.5 here. Okay? And then here for the last one, we would put 45.5. We just maintain a pattern. And what number do we put in the calculator to represent each one of these ranges? Well, we put the number that's exactly in between the left and the right boundary. So between 0.5 and 5.5, the middle number would be 2.5 from the left, 2.5 from the right, so it would be 3. And for this one, it would be 8. And this one, it would be 13. And the next one would be 18. So there's kind of a pattern there. So let's see, using the calculator, what the class interval in which the median lies is. Basically, the calculator is going to give us the median from the center value here. We're only going to put the center value in the calculator. I'm going to show you how to do that here. So you go into Stat Edit, like we did before. And we have our data from the last problem, but we can clear that out. We just go up here and we say clear, and it'll clear out the whole column. It's kind of useful. Okay, and so for here, we're going to put the numbers 3, 8, 13, and 18. 3, 8, 13, and 18. Just like we have in, oops, I put 13 instead of 3. I want to put 3, 8, 13, 18, etc. Right? And then in the next column, I'm going to put the frequency, 16, 28, 26. Remember I said that on the left side, you're going to have the data, and on the right side, you're going to have the frequencies. So that's exactly what they did. Okay, I just put in all the numbers. I didn't make you watch me do that. It's kind of slow to do that on the computer. Then I just do stat calc. And since I used L1 and L2 again, I can just leave L1 and L2 here. But if you use a different list, you just change that. Let's see what we get. X bar, which is the mean, is 12.95. We'll write that value down here where it asks us for the mean. We're going to maybe have to adjust that a little bit. Okay, and then find the class interval in which the median lies. So the class interval in which the median lies, so let's see, where is the median? We'll go down here where it says median. It says 13. So the median is in the class which has the center value 13, so that would be 11 to 15. So we could say, yeah, that's in the 11 to 15 class. Or you could also say maybe that it's the 10.5 to 15.5 class. Okay? Either one of those would be fine. Find the modal class. Well, the modal class is easy. Even though the calculator doesn't tell you the mode is the most frequently occurring class. So let's see. That would be the class that occurred 28 times. So that would be the class 6 to 10. Or you could say it's the class 5.5, between 5.5 and 10.5. Okay? Estimate according to the correct to the nearest whole number, the mean number of words in a sentence. Okay, since it said that we want the nearest whole number, we just got 19.5 in the calculator. We're going to round that to the nearest whole number, so we would put 20. right? Where it's not 19.5 because 0.5 rounds up to 20. And then finally, we're going to make the graph for this. And remember, we want to label the x and the y-axis. The x-axis is going to be labeled as class interval for number of words, and the y-axis is going to be frequency. So at the bottom, we're going to put number of words, and on the vertical axis, we're going to put frequency. And then we're going to label it with the numbers that correspond to the classes, for example. And we want to use these numbers here, which are the boundaries between them, and the right boundary is the same as the left boundary. And so that's convenient because when we label it, we just label the boundary, and then both the left boundary and the right boundary are labeled. So for example, 0.5, 5.5, and then we've already labeled the left side of this class, and this is going to be 10.5, 15.5, 20.5, 25.5, 30.5, okay, 40, 35.5. Does it go any higher than that? Yeah, it goes up to 45.5. So this would be 40.5. This would be 45.5. That would be the last one. That looks right. And then for the frequencies, the lowest frequency is 0. The highest frequency is 28. So we're going to count by 2s here. 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28. Okay, and then let's just start writing down the values. So for the first interval, it would be 16, then 28, 16, 28, 26, 14, 10, 26, 14, 10. The next values are going to be, 3, 1, 0, 2. So 3, 1, 0, and 2. So this is our histogram here. Okay? All right. And so that's all we needed to do for this one, right? So for these ones that have classes where you have multiple numbers here, just remember that when you put it in the calculator, you're going to put in a middle number, which represents the whole class. And when you graph it, you're going to put numbers that are the same. The right boundary of one class is going to be the left boundary of the next class. So if they're not the same, you need to find the number that's halfway in between by putting a 0.5 there, for example. Okay? That's it.